Dear God, we thank you that today we can come again to study your words and also a lot of things, how we going to serve you better and to help the church to grow and help people to know you. Help us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, tonight we're going to cover chapter 3 on pastor ministry. Chapter 3, we talk about pastor as a teacher and theologian. So what the difference between teacher and theologian? In technically, they're not much different. Why I say that? Because both are pastors who teach and do the prophecy. Theologian is more about the prophecy, about what God wants people to know about the future, what will happen to them. And teaching will cover a lot of that too. But they try to make a difference. Some pastors just teach the words of God without really care much about what the future will happen or what the people should do or plan about. But in the term of theologian, it go deeper. It means that that job will inspire their people to think deeper or to dream more and to want to do big things for God. So that are two different approach. You might go to different churches and you will see that some churches, the pastor is more teacher. You go to some churches, the pastor is more prophet or theologian. And you can tell the difference. Typically in America, majority of pastors try to balance both. Mean that try to be a good teacher and also good theologian or prophet in the same time. But we know that we all have different gifts. And most pastors cannot do both very well. They can do some, but still they have a certain gift. Now, for you, it's always good to teach the words of God the best you can and to share how God inspires you. Think deeper in a certain topic. And some pastors say that, oh, I don't want to touch politics. Well, you don't need to go to politics. You don't need to take side. You just stick with the words of God. And now when people say, the people want to know what I think, what I idea about a certain topic. Well, you can go on by saying that the words of God say this. And people can have their own idea, understanding about the words of God. But the words of God said it this way. So you try to be with the words of God. You try not to take side. So as a good teacher, you just stick with the words of God and what the Bible clearly say on that topic. But in the same time, you need to be more understanding and flexible in the sense of a lot of situations always different. Mean that the background, the surrounding, the situation is not exactly the same all the time. So when you explain the words of God, you need to give them idea about why God said that and how to interpret it for the certain situation. For example, Paul said that women don't teach, don't speak in church. Go to your home, ask your husband. And a lot of people just quote Paul and say that Paul said women don't speak in church, don't teach men. Go home, keep quiet. Now, it is fair to quote Paul and say that Paul is not fair to women. Now, how can you be fair to Paul and people of today? You need to know the situation why Paul teach that. When, why, how, to whom. You need to know the certain thing. And to be fair to Paul, Paul did not forbid women every churches. Some churches, yes. But some churches, Paul appoint women to be teacher, leader, elder, and even prophet. Now, why Paul allow one church to do it and another church he forbid it? Well, now it come back to culture. It come back to different situation now. So to be fair to Paul, Paul did not say no to everywhere or everyone. It's just someone, sometimes. So that to be fair with the words of God too. A lot of people quote the word of God wrong, mean that they use the words of God and use for every situation without understanding what God said, that for what, for why, for when, for how, to whom. You need to understand different situation. So to be fair to the words of God too. Now you can see that a lot of preachers to be, I use the word, abuse the words of God. But in regular or simple saying of people is they put words in God's mouth. What that means? God did not mean that, but they just say that God said that. When I mean that, it means that like sometimes your kid might quote you wrong. Your kid go to school and tell the teacher that my dad said kill all of them. Now the teacher report to police. The student said that his dad said that dad will kill all neighbor. Now the police come to your house and get you to jail. Now, what the problem that happened? Your kid misunderstood what you say. You might say that you see all the bug or the ant in your house, and you tell your wife that we need to kill them all. You mean the ant. But your kid just heard you say that and go to school and tell the teacher that dad want to kill everyone. Now, whose mistake is that? Well, you might say nobody's mistake. It's all misunderstanding. Your kid just misunderstood you, and you just burst out in anger because of the ant bothering you. And the teacher did not try to find out what happened. Just report the police, and the police just come and get you. And this happened all the time with the words of God. People misunderstood God and don't understand why God say a certain thing or command a certain rule for what reason. Somebody said the law of God applies to all the time. I say, yes, you're correct. But in the same situation, in the same story, not different story, not different situation. So now you see my point. To be a good teacher, you need to study all detail. You need to know all the information before you decide to tell people about the words of God. It's a big responsibility. And to be theologian is even more complicated. It means that you need to understand a lot of background, a lot of, when we talk about theology, it means that theo comes from the word about God. Logi means the study about God. So when you try to be theologian, you try to read the mind of God. It's even more difficult. How can you know the mind of God or the plan of God or the will of God? It's more complicated. So to be safe is always stick with what you know. And what you don't know, you might give the benefit of the doubt to the people that we don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure for certain things. We just know something about it. So here we'll have more guidelines for you to be a good Bible teacher and to be a good theologian. Education is the first requirement. You need to learn as much as you can. Somebody told me that I don't need to learn anything. I just read it and God teach me. Well, that's one way, but it's not always work that way. God can teach someone that way, but not everyone. Most of us need some guidelines, some teacher, some mentor to help us. Jesus spent 3.5 years with 12 disciples to mentor them, to be with them, to teach them. Paul spent a lot of time, many years with his students, mentoring them, teach them, help them. So that means that we need some guideline, we need some mentor or someone who more seniority than us, more experience to help us. And here we talk about Paul more, how he trained his students. And the burden of Paul as a teacher is so heavy. Why? Because he feels that he have to help his students to know exactly what God intends for them to teach. Some teachers just say that I don't care what they teach. But in fact, as a teacher, you need to care about what your students teach. Why? Because you have a big part in their life. And what they teach, a lot comes from you. It's not just what you're teaching, but what you're living, your lifestyle too. You live as what you preach or not. So that's a big responsibility as a teacher, as a theologian. And here we'll discuss more who can be a teacher. Well, a lot of time we always go back to the gift. Some people have the gift of teaching. A lot of people have different gifts, but we need to know, everyone needs to know how to teach at some way, somehow. But some people can be a very good teacher because they have special gift of teaching. Now, to be a good teacher, not just know a lot. To know a lot is one requirement, but you know that a lot of people who know a lot don't know how to teach, don't know how to share, don't know how to help other people. And that is the fact. I have a lot of friends who go on study to be doctor. In my doctorate program, I know a lot of scholars, know so much. But when they share, when they teach, we know that they don't have gift. They don't know how to teach. They don't know how to share what they know. So maybe the lack of that gift, or they don't care. They just want to know. So at Paul say that we need to pray for the gift of knowledge, wisdom. And we also need to pray for the gift of teaching, sharing the good news, the gospel, the knowledge of the words of God. Okay, here on Ephesians chapter 4:11, talk about 5 gifts of related to teaching. It means that the gift of teaching is not just know how to speak, but it's also about a lot of things in order to be a good teacher. It's also about you care for what you teach, you know what you teach, and you also care to help your students when they learn from you, when they copy you. It's all about not just one gift, it's about 5 gifts in there. Okay, here more detail about you as a teacher. And here on this section that we mentioned about every church needs the pastor who can do both. Mean that you can be a good teacher and you need to be a good theologian too. Now, a lot of people say that I don't even have a gift to be a pastor. Well, a lot of times you need to try out. To be a pastor is a big responsibility. The word shepherd means that you take care of everyone, good and bad, obedient and disobedient sheep. And you need to love them all. You need to care for them all. So that sometimes it's difficult. Now, on this section, I will mention more about a pastor as a theologian. A lot of people say, oh, my church is a simple church for simple people. We don't need to know much. Well, the word of God is deep. And don't look at the simple people that they don't understand. A lot of times they understand a lot more than we know. And God can reveal a lot to simple people too, through the Holy Spirit. So it's your job too. You try to bring people to that deep understanding, the will of God. It's not just what God already say in the Bible, but it's a lot of things that God wants to reveal to you or to your people. His plan for each one of them, his future ministry. A lot of things come from you understand the will of God and the plan of God for you and your people. Now, as a theologian, they always say, they talk about vision. So it's not just about knowledge, it's about future. It's about understanding what God wants from your people. Now, a lot of people think that, oh, we just have a church, we come to worship God, and that's done. But God have more for you to do. It's not just us repeating something. You see that many temples in many religions, people just go there to repeat their prayer and to perform ceremony and done. But at a church, it's not that way. We go to church to worship God, to dialogue with God, and to be inspired by God, so we can go out and serve God. So it's a very different goal, intention, and how we have our worship service. And from time to time, you see that God show a new vision to the leader and to the people, what God wants you to do and what God wants for your future. And that's what we want. And in order to be good theologian, in the sense that you need to find out about the will of God, that fresh for your group. Now, in general, God already showed his will for the whole church or for the whole believer in the whole world. But your church specifically will have special revelation for your church, for your people. So that is why we try to find out what God wants from us and what God have for us and what God wants us to do for this year, or next year, or next 5 years. Well, we cannot guarantee that everything will happen that way, but at least that what we listening to God. And in the same time, in order to understand the teaching deeper, sometimes we learn something and we think we understand something, but it might not be fully correct. But as a theologian, you try to find out, you search out more, and God reveal clearer. And you understand in the right perspective of what God wants you and your church to do, or your people to do. And they say that if you understand more, you can be more joyful in your worship and in your fellowship among your people. Now, this is the way to reignite the joy, the fellowship among all your people. People feel that, oh, today I understand more about the will of God or what God wants us to do. And hear more detail, what is biblical theology? I don't mean that you have to, or pastor, or of you have to go to teach in seminary. But we talk about your own church, your own group, that you try to help them get better understanding about the words of God. And as I say, theologian also about the vision, about the future, about the plan that God has. And now, come back to the word pastor. I always say that pastor is not the word that the Bible used exactly. Jesus always say that I am a good shepherd. That's the word in Greek that used the word shepherd. But in Latin, later on, the Latin translated into pastor. But because we use English language, the word pastor come back to us from Latin. But in Greek, it should translate shepherd. But a lot of people will misunderstood, thought that we taking care of sheep or goats or something. So the word pastor might be, people don't know what it is. So it might be safe for a lot of pastors to explain later on who I am, what I try to do. So it comes from the word perspective of the Bible, what God intends for us and what God wants us to do. Well, you can say a lot. When you compare what Paul tried to explain or what the Bible tried to teach us about this group of people, pastors, the book of Acts used the word elder. In Greek, they call presbyter, elder or presbyter, or in translation into English mean that old people. But we don't like the word old people. We prefer to be called elder. In the Greek, even better, presbyter. The Presbyterian denomination come from this Greek word. So they have elder in the church too. They call presbyter. But for apostle, this is the group of people that going to take care of the people spiritually. Mean that you feed the people with the words of God, you help them grow and help them find the will of God for them and for the church. And the Bible mentioned about your job as a theologian. You will lead your people to study the words of God. They use two words, analyze, synthesize. What the two different of these two words in your job? Analyzing means that you chop the verses into small parts and try to study the real meaning of each word. And synthesize means that you put them together again at a new understanding what God tried to tell you. So your job is analyze and synthesize. So it means that you chop it down in detail to understand every single thing, and then you put them together again so you can apply it for people's life. So that two main job as a pastor, as a teacher, and as a theologian, what you're supposed to do. Analyze and synthesize. Two different jobs, and that you need to learn how to do it. And then you take that analysis, synthesize, and apply to people's life. Make them understand how they get to use them in their everyday life, in their culture, in their situation. That's your job as a pastor and theologian. So in the third section means more that you have double job as teacher and theologian all the time. You need to make the words of God known to people. And when they say known, mean that people not just know, but they understand. What's the difference between know the words of God and understand the words of God? To know mean that they never heard of it. Now they heard of it, we say that they know. But to understand mean that they know what God intends for them to do. So that two different things. To know and to understand, not the same thing. That your job to bring them to know and to understand. And to be always not my center, but Christ. Jesus always the center of what knowledge we have. And always put Jesus in the center of your teaching. And another thing that advise you as a teacher and philosopher or theologian is try to teach the whole Bible, not just one part. A lot of modern pastors just love to teach a few books or a few passages. They don't teach the whole Bible. People say, why? Well, they say it's too difficult for people, or it not serve their own purpose. Because some pastors just have their own agenda. And they use the word of God to fulfill their agenda, their goal, personal goal. And that's wrong. You, as a servant of God, you need to do the job for God to fulfill God's will, God's teaching to the people, not your God's will and God's intention. So this is a big commitment, a big responsibility that and help people of God to edify them mean that help them better, make them closer to God, make them better every day. And by using the words of God, it can help people to change them and make them better. Now, what is the three proposal? Shared opposite presupposition mean that you talk about the authority, you talk about the unity, the fulfillment of the words of God. You emphasize on that. Some people doubt that the words of God is from God or accurate or good enough. You need to confirm that this nothing else better than the words of God. It comes with authority, unity, and fulfillment from God. And here more detail about why we believe that way. Some proof that the scripture is the words of God, inspired by God, and come to us to help us know. And another thing we need to do, cultivate personal corporate practice for whole Bible intake. Mean that, emphasize that we need to share the whole Bible, teach the whole Bible. And you need to study and know the whole Bible, not just one part, the whole book of God, so you can help people to understand the whole will of God. And the third advice is you practice what you teach, and people will see. To practice everything. And the last point, they say that every Bible study, everything point to Jesus, point to what Jesus have done for us. It's not about other people. It's not about God who come to die on the cross to save us. It's about Jesus and all his plan for humankind. So, and this is more about the pastor as the teacher, as a shepherd, and as the leader of the church. The second part will be about denomination. A pastor, why we take part in denomination? What denomination relate to your church or why we need it at all? That is the second part that we're going to discuss later on. Okay, I will come to you and get your question about pastor as a teacher, as a theologian. You have question or you have concern? You think you are a good teacher? Your student like your teaching? Or your wife say that you're so boring? Yeah, Nathan?
John, I never asked Farm. I'm sure if I ask her, she will say you're too boring. I like to listen. I like to study, but I don't know what I am gifted on.
I believe that if you have been teaching a long time, you will have some fan who like your teaching or say you have good point in a certain way. But it's always good to ask your why because you can improve yourself that way. Your why is the best, the worst critic in the same time. But at least she's going to be sincere to you. Why we need to listen to people response how we teach or what we teach. Well, one thing you cannot change the fact. Whatever the Bible says, you have to teach. You cannot change the words of God to make people like it. But you can do many other things to make people want to learn and understand. That's your job, responsibility. Yeah, Nathan.
John, I think to have a good audience, good people that want to listen, want to study, to have people that want to grow or maybe mature Christian maybe, because I think sometimes when we do Bible study, especially people say, it's too boring. I don't need to hear that. I don't want to hear it, you know.
Well, I believe, as you say, that God needs to open people's heart first so they can understand and they pay attention. I see some non-believers who come to church. They talk a lot before the service, but whenever I start preaching, they fall asleep, lies away. But after I'm done preaching, they wake up.
What is that meaning, Ajahn?
Well, theologically, we believe that they will shut their heart, shut their ear, shut their mind from the words of God.
That's impossible.
Yeah. They are afraid that they will believe. So sometimes you need to cast out the spirit before you start.
I done that when I was a new church going, like for 2 months. That so boring, you don't understand the language, and fall asleep in the back of the church and snoring, all the stuff. And then when the preacher, Pastor Ron, Ajahn, how he preached, right? He like to use the sound in podium, bang the podium, and wake you up. Yeah.
Now, should you quit after several people told you that you are so boring?
No, I don't think so. You don't need to quit, Ajahn. You need to learn to improve yourself.
Yeah, that's a good answer. But you know that God appoint you. They don't appoint you. The only person who can find you is God.
Right.
When God say you're done, you're done. But when God still using you, you keep working, keep doing your job. You're serving God first. So that your boss, if your boss happy, you don't need to worry.
I have a question, Ajahn.
Yes, Gao.
How do we know are we done and God wasn't used us?
Well, that's a good question. I am a preacher for more than 40 years. If you ask me that some people want to get rid of me, I believe so. But I stand this long because I know God's still using me. So a lot of things will tell you God still want you, still using you. He find a way to help you, to protect you and support you. I use the word God protect you because Satan will do everything to get rid of you. But God will protect you.
Yes, I understand that God can use any kind of people to do His work. And I see when Jesus come, He come looking for the sinner, but for the people here on earth, they say, no, this person is not. They cannot do the work for God because they have too much sin.
Well, we are sinners.
I have one more question about teaching and preaching. What is that a difference on that?
Well, it's almost the same thing. Modern day, in the past, in the time of apostle, they don't make difference. But in modern day, we make a difference. What the difference between teaching and preaching today? Some pastors, famous pastors, do the same thing. Mean that teaching, preaching is the same thing. But modern day, they try to make a difference. Mean that preaching is on one topic and shorter. But teaching always long and diverse, mean that you can go everywhere, everything in that 1 or 2 hours. But modern day preaching in America normally about 15, 20, 30 minutes maximum. And on concentrate on one topic or one section of the Bible that modern day preaching is about.
Okay, now I understand now. Thank you.
Welcome. But if you go to the Bible, look at Elijah, Paul, teaching and preaching, it look the same. Yeah, Nathan.
Ajahn, when you do Bible teaching through the Bible, you don't get to choose what to say and not to say. You have to go to according to the text, isn't it?
And teaching have many styles too. A lot of modern day preachers want to concentrate just something in the text. They don't go everywhere. They don't go everything. They just have a goal to teach, for example, faith, hope, love. Even Bible teaching, they still concentrate on that a few things. They select a few verses and they skip a lot of verses. But the old style Bible teaching is you go every single verse. That very deep to the words of God. So it depends. You can teach by skipping a lot, or you want to go word by word, cover everything on the words of God. I don't know, different people prefer different way.
I have a question.
Yes.
So for you as a pastor, when you teach your congregation, how do you get them engaged? Like, do you ask them, like, what do you ask your congregation? What topic do you want me to teach? Or do you just let the Holy Spirit lead you to the topic that you want to teach your congregation?
You know, in the past 20 years something, I concentrate on the whole book. It means that when I preach, I start from chapter 1, verse 1 of each book to cover the whole book, every chapter, every single verse. But still, when I preach, I still concentrate on more topic on that section. But when I teach Bible, I do the same thing, but more detail. Every single verse, every single detail now. Like when we study the book of Revelation, you will see that that's my style of Bible teaching now. I go on every single verse and explain everything.
John, that's what I thought too. To me, I prefer to when I teach, I want to teach through the Bible, not skipping. I don't think that would be helpful to skip like for a chapter and skip the words that makes sense to you or that go to according to your title, to your goal, and you skip a whole bunch of them. I don't think that would be good.
Yeah, for Bible teaching, I think you can concentrate on every single verse. But from preaching, it's still a different goal. You see that for Bible teaching, we want them to know everything. But for preaching, most of preachers still want to motivate their congregation to one goal. So the purpose is still different.
So when you're doing preaching, you could jump from chapter to chapter that related to your topic you're talking about, right?
Yes, but I try to keep straight from chapter 1 to chapter 2 all the way. But
Okay.
I jump sometime. For example, Christmas is coming. I need to jump to Christmas story or Easter. I do jump on that intentionally on that occasion. That for my preaching.
John, should we say that if you preach a topical style, you can jump everywhere you want?
Yes, but still, I still prefer that even you're on topic, you still should use one book at a time. Because every chapter, every section of the Bible have topic in there. And when you study about how to preach or teach, you will see that even you use the whole same Bible, you still have different style of teaching and preaching.
John, talking about preaching, I think in our days, maybe a lot of people they like to preach textual style, I think, because I've been going to a lot of the churches and most of pastors they use, okay, it seems like they use textual style. They can, jump verses, they select a whole bunch of verses from here and there, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, textual style can fulfill a lot of what you want, but in the same time, it's a complicated style. And a lot of listeners get lost unless you are very clear on what you try to do. And a lot of times the preacher themselves get lost. You might start at an elephant, you might end up at a dog.
Some preachers I noticed that they just like refer you to some verse, and once you get there, they just read one that verse and just jump to another one, and it's just like I think of the one service, and then that pastor was using about 9 or about 10 verses. It's just like read and just like keep jumping. I was like, oh, that must be textual.
But when I say textual is more complicated, mean that you need to have enough time to explain why you jump around and why you select a certain passage. And a lot of time it's not fair to the words of God because you don't use the whole thing. You just pick up a little thing of every single pages. It's like you try to make a movie. You cut from here a little bit, cut from there a little bit to make a new movie out of the words of God. You know that modern day movie, they take a lot of cutting, pasting, connecting from everywhere. And a lot of modern day sermon is that way, cut and paste, cut and paste. Okay, if you don't have any more questions, we give you a short break and we come back, okay, to finish this chapter. Okay, in the last section, we will talk about pastor and denomination. So what that means? Denomination is just the words we use for the group of churches that join together to do something. Why we need a denomination? Well, it's always come to the point that if you are by yourself one church, you might cannot do a lot of things. But when you join so many churches together, you can do a lot of big things. So the denomination is something that a lot of churches that have similar belief or similar goal combine together. It can be all over the same state, all over the whole country, or many other countries that have similar faith or doctrine. They put together and they call themselves denomination. So when the denomination start, well, in the old time, for more than 1,500 years, the church don't have denomination. It's just one church. But when the Reformation started in the 16th century, now every group that start in France, in Germany, in Switzerland, in England, they come from different countries and they separate the church out. And in that group, they call themselves a certain name, like Lutheran in Germany, and Presbyterian in Scotland, Church of England or Anglican in England. And the Methodists come to America and many Quaker, all this group call themselves denomination. So you see that all the denominations start sometimes not mainly about the difference in that theology, but a lot of time mainly where they come from. So today, if you ask me how many denominations Christians have, oh, you might say several hundred, from very small to very big. And another question is, which denomination is the biggest group in Christianity? The answer is Roman Catholic, the biggest group. And if you ask in America, beside the Roman Catholic, which is the second biggest group denomination in America, the answer is Southern Baptist. The Catholic in America might make up the number that the Catholic Church say they have 50 million people in their church. The Southern Baptists say that they have 18 million followers who join their denomination. And you can go on, like how many Methodists? They say maybe 5 million. How about the Presbyterian? They might be say about 2.5 million. And it's go on. But one thing for sure is every denomination have less and less member every year. So why? Well, they say that more people quit the church. They don't go back to church. The old people who make majority of the church die off, and the new generation never come back. They might go to church when they're young, but when they grown up, they left the church and never come back. So that might be the answer that why every denomination gets smaller, lose more and more young people. And the old people who make majority die off. Now, how about the future of denomination? Well, it's not so bright. Now, I don't know you believe the number or not. They say that today, every year, more than 1,000 churches in America close down their business. More than 1,000 churches. That's a lot. How many churches in America? I talk about Christian churches in America. They believe that there are more than 50,000 churches. Well, some numbers say that if you call all the small groups or the house churches, the number might explode to 100,000 groups. That's a lot. But every year, more than 1,000 of big churches die. So that's a big number. So every 100 years, how many die? 10,000 churches. And how many newborn? Well, they say several thousand new church born every year too. But the newborn cannot keep up with the dead. It's like they say that in many parts of the world, the newborn baby cannot keep up with the dead. Mean that every year the population of the world about 1% die because of old age, because of sickness or everything. Around 1% of the population of any country will die. In order to keep up, you need new birth at least 1% to keep up with the death. If you want to grow, you need to have more than 1% of birth. But you believe me that today a lot of countries in this world have less than 1% birth, like 0.5%, like in Korea, Japan. And now China start have that problem. Their birth rate is below 1% now. But the death rate all over the world still about 1%. So in many countries of modern country, or you might first world country, get smaller. But the third world still get bigger, mean that the poor country in Africa, or even in India, still growing because they have a lot of baby, because of their faith, their belief, or whatever. Now talk about church again. Since denominations start because churches need to help one another. They need to join together so they have more power to do big things. And in the past, denominations do a lot of good things, helping one another to survive a lot of persecution, survive a lot of difficult time in World War I, World War II. The denomination support small churches. The big churches, they always come together and put their money together. And the money go to help the weaker one, the poorer one, or the weaker one, smaller one. So this is how churches survive, by helping one another through denomination. It looked like it worked for several hundred years, but now denominations get smaller because they have less people and less people. The question is how long the denomination will survive. Well, difficult to answer. Why? If you talk about number of people, you can guess how long they can last. But if you guess about money, they're going to last a long time. Why? The denomination have 500 years or 1,000 years to save money. So they save a lot of money. They have a lot of land. They have a lot of property. And now they invest those land, those money, those property, and the interest alone can keep them survive forever. Mean that even you don't have a lot of people, they still have income, they still have money to survive. In the future, the denomination might have to hire people to keep coming to the church or to serve with high salary because they have money to pay to keep themselves survive. But the people who sit in the pew, the people who come to church to worship might have less and less or none at all. But they still can function at a church, function at a denomination because they have money. So that to answer one question, even without people, they still can survive. But just the empty church that keep going on, no worshiper, or very few who will come to the church now. You can go to any big typical church in America or all over the world that open every Sunday. You walk in there, you see a few old people there. I went to a lot of old cathedral churches in Europe on Sunday. What I see is not people who worship God. I see only tourists. All the tourists come to look at all the painting, all the sculpture, all the beautiful thing, take picture, but nobody go there to worship anymore. In Europe, big cathedral, in Germany, in Switzerland, in France, in Italy, all tourists. Well, I don't know that's going to be the future of all the big churches. They still can survive financially, but at a church of worshiper, I doubt it. Less and less people go to church now. So the church needs to do something. Now, today, a lot of churches, modern churches, don't call themselves denomination. They call themselves non-denomination. Why they intend to call themselves non-denomination? They want to blend in, and a lot of people have bad impression about denomination, like Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, Lutheran, Catholic. They say that that's segregation, make people feel not welcome. So all the modern day churches don't call themselves anything. They just call community church or call themselves gathering worship or all the fancy name. And they say themselves, we are non-denomination. To make people feel comfortable, to make people feel that we don't have any brand name, we're not associated with anyone. But that is just the advertisement. But in fact, all these modern day churches still form themselves in a different way. For example, you go to any big city in America, you will see Calvary Chapel. In Southern California, Northern California, in many big cities, they will have Calvary Chapel, and they call themselves non-denomination. But they, all of them from all over the country, they still join together. They still function as denomination, but they claim themselves non-denomination. So what that means? They speak one thing, they do another thing. They still want the benefit of denomination, but don't want the bad name of denomination. So many other famous big churches have branches, you might call branches or franchise. In business, we call franchise, like McDonald's. You have McDonald's all over the world. We call franchise. So all the big churches have franchise all over the world. So they run their church like business, like McDonald's or Burger King. They sell their franchise, sell their name. And another group can run the church similar to them while under their supervision, under their franchise. They don't call themselves denomination, but I prefer to call them franchise now because they run the church that way. Like McDonald's or Burger King or Kentucky Fried Chicken. They have their name everywhere, all over the world, but they might say that local owned, but under their brand name. So why they still need that? Well, the fact is, nobody can survive by themselves. We still need friends. We still need the group of people to work together. It's just different way to call themselves. Denomination, franchise, or branches. It's still the same thing. It's just the way to advertise and to make themselves look better and try to get away from all the bad name or the bracket of the old name. A lot of churches now change their name. They say we are non-denomination and change their name to fit that. Now we call themselves community church. No Baptist, no Presbyterian, no nothing, no first or second or third anymore. We are community church, or we are chapel, or we are the union, whatever. Try to make people feel that we are not passionate, we are not associated with anyone, but in fact, they're still part of the brand name, they're still part of the franchise, they're still part of a big group. So this is the new way that they're running church today. And there's nothing wrong. But I think we just need to be sincere with people that we still a church that preach the good news about Jesus, about salvation, and man still need God. So I understand they try to make themselves more accessible to young and modern day people who don't like all the stigma of the old churches. But a lot of time, I think they go too far and make all the churches look bad. So you can guess about the future of denomination or how churches going to help one another, what kind of format we need next, and what will work with our generation. I don't just mean that our old generation, I talk about young people. Today we talk about Y generation, Z generation, and all kind of name, you can name it. The group of over 60, the group of 30, the group of under 20, the group of teen, they all have different name for them. And our business target them in different way. But how the church going to react to all different group of people who suspicious of churches and don't trust authority. Now, if you talk about all different denominations, different from one another, well, at least some of the theology, they're different. And the way they practice, they run the church is a little bit different. Some control from the top, mean that headquarters. Some are self-control, mean that every single church are independent, but they come to join together for some reason or some way to run the church. So you will have independent up to control from the top, like the Roman Catholic Church, control from Rome by Pope. One person govern the whole world of Catholic Church, tens of thousands of churches, or hundreds of thousands of churches, governed and run and controlled by one person, the Pope. But many other denominations governed by representatives from local church who go there on the meeting every year and vote. And the majority is almost like the congregation, like American way of government. But some churches run like the dictator church, mean that one guy control the whole church, the whole denomination. And you talk about in America that we live, there are several hundred denominations, from a small one to the biggest one. As I say, the Roman Catholic is the biggest denomination in America. They claim themselves In America, 50 million. But the second biggest in America, the Southern Baptist claim themselves 18 million. And you keep go on, Orthodox and Pentecostal, all kind of group. And many other names. You can group the denomination in different way. This is the modern way. They call themselves, the first group, they call themselves, and this is some major group, Anabaptist, Seventh-day, Quaker, and but you lump them up. There are some major group that you can put them. Maintenance church, it means that the church that try to keep the old tradition, the old way, the old thing. This group you call maintenance church. The second group you call memorial church. And this group try to keep alive some big event in church history or in their past or success that they have. This group we call them memorial church. The third group we call movement church. This is more modern thing. The church that very active and go with the politics of the day. Whatever come in politics, the church will move with it. And here in the last section, we talk about why church need denomination. Well, we sum up that the real main reason is we cannot survive alone. We are so lonely. We need friends. We need people to work together to survive or to fight or to work for a big goal. So it's always better to have friends that we can rely on, can help one another. So it's nothing wrong to have denomination, but the goal and what we do. And every denomination will have meeting from time to time, like monthly meeting, annual meeting, to do what? To get fellowship, to vote on big decisions, and to contribute money for mission goal or seminary. You see that when they do mission, international mission, one church cannot do it themselves, but when they combine, they have enough money to send missionary. And for seminary, one church cannot do it alone, but they combine all churches. They have enough resources, enough students to start a seminary. So you see that the good thing of denomination is a lot, that we can do a lot of things because we work together, we help one another. So that's the good side of denomination. How about the bad side? Well, there's some bad side too. Mean that sometimes people who form the denomination have some bad intention. For example, in the past, they form together to get rid of some other group that they don't like, or they feel that they are teach wrong. So the big group try to get rid of the small group. When they get together, they have a lot of power. They have a lot of connection. So they can get rid of some group, some small group that they feel that the enemy. And that is wrong. They have wrong goal, wrong purpose. And a lot of time the denomination compete with one another because some of the leaders feel that, well, we can do better job, we can get more people to join us. And that is the wrong goal too. But it happened in the past. In fact, we should use it in the right way, but some people use it wrong. And how about different denominations can work together? Oh yes, in the past, we can work together. We have bigger goal to reach, to bring people to salvation. That's a bigger goal. And in history, we found out that sometimes some leader can unite all different denominations for a purpose, like Billy Graham. He a very good preacher who can unite a lot of denominations for evangelism. And we can discuss some more about how Billy can do it. I went to his school 2 times to learn how he do it, to take classes with him from his team, and to learn how he work with different denominations and how he can learn a lot of things that many other denominations cannot do. So that is something we can learn from him. And we talk about a lot of benefit out of denomination. There are a lot. But as I say, that some drawback or some problem also come with denomination, because sometimes when we have a lot of money, we have a lot of power, and we do badly or make wrong decision. And sometimes we think that we can use money or power to solve some problem, but it's not the way of God. So that is the problem that we have in the past. One thing is denomination. In order to survive, we need to evolve. Mean that we cannot stop what we have 500 years ago or 400 years ago that we think it worked, but things change all the time. Denomination need to evolve and change with time, change with society, with people. I don't mean we change our faith or belief, but I mean that we change the way we run it, the way we organize, and the way we reach out to people to fit the need and what people want. And here in that section, I mentioned something about the new group, new movement that call themselves non-denominational. But I already say that, in fact, there's still a denomination. They still function as denomination, but they don't accept that they are. They don't use the name. They just call themselves as franchise or branches or something else. They use the business model, not the Christian model now, to function their church or their organization. And another question I put down here is, can one church be multiple denominations? In the past, people say no, but modern day, they say yes. A lot of churches today join 2, 3 denominations, and the denomination themselves allow it. Why? Well, maybe they're more open up, or they need people so badly, or because they don't care about what their main goal anymore. They just want to do something. And they allow people to join 2, 3, 4, 5 denominations in the same time, as long as they participate. And this happened today. In the past 20 years, in the past 400, 500 years, this is impossible. But today, it's possible now. It happened. Okay, there are many more topics that we can discuss about why we need denomination. And you think that the future of denomination is good? Let's come back to discuss about this topic. You ever know that your church belongs to a certain denomination? Or you never know? Yeah, Nathan?
John, I have I have comments, I have questions. First, there was a church, a big church. It used to be called Baptist Church something. And about 5 years ago, they changed to Creekside Church. So no Baptist anymore.
Yes. And I say that they feel that the word Baptist is so offensive to some people.
Yeah, and at the same time, when I meet people, especially American people, you talk about about church, everything, and you see that, especially you notice that church doesn't have like a denomination title on it. You can ask them. They say, "Well, we are kind of independent," but they kind of, "Oh yeah, okay," but how close you are to the what kind of denomination? I say you can keep digging. I said, okay. Yeah. I have a question about, you said that especially for Southern Baptist, they're very big. How about if one of the church is struggling financially, do that Southern Baptist will help or anything like that, Ajahn?
If you join, the Southern Baptist will have the way of organization this way. The local church in those areas join together to form, they call association. Mean that like 10 church, 20 church nearby will join together, call themselves association. And they might meet once a month for the leader. And once a year, big meeting. They can work together, they can support one another that way from that 20, 30 local churches. But financially, not a lot, because the Southern Baptists believe in independence. Mean that you need to try to survive by yourself. If you cannot survive, just close down. But nowadays, I believe that they try to support young church or new church that just start. They pool money together and they can help support the pastor for a few years. And that is how they support new churches or small churches.
From among local churches.
Yeah, and then another step go on, they call state convention. Now all the association all over the state join together. So they have maybe 1,000, 2,000 churches. They come once a year, but the pastor might come once a quarter to the next state convention for the meeting. And they have more money now. They can support new churches, small churches, some, but most of the time just for 1 year or 2 years, not forever.
Ajahn,
Yes.
what do you think? Didn't ask, but just about, my father-in-law's church in Oakland. We used to rent or lease from Lakeside Baptist Church, a really big church, and now they could not find the space. They end up using Lutheran's church. And in my mind, I'm kind of why they could not get help from Southern Baptist,
I think Lakeside Church is American Baptist.
Yeah. But they could not. They end up have to. They said, they have one big group of Baptist people came in and they want to remodel the building. So they kind of had my in-laws get out from there, and my the Indian church they couldn't find space. They couldn't find anywhere to go, so end up have to find a church, renting a church from Lutheran church. And in my mind, why Baptist not helping?
Well, it might depend on the local church because a lot of Baptist churches decide by the local leader. And when the local leader change, they can change everything. They're not controlled by the headquarters. It's different from Lutheran. The Lutheran, they decide from the headquarters.
So even though if Indian church they write a letter to asking for help from Southern Baptist Church, there's no point they will help.
Yeah, you need to talk to the local pastor and local leader. If they want to help, they help. The convention, the association have no say.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
And
because the way they run the denomination so different.
And another thing, do we have to pay some kind of membership fee to be part of a Southern Baptist being member?
The law of the convention say that you send some of your income to support the mission or the work, but they don't say how much. But some support every month, and that make you in good standing.
Okay.
to
We can.
vote, to be part of it.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a good thing, but some denomination demand 5% or 10%. But the Southern Baptist never demand how much, but some.
I have question, John.
Yes,
I have two question. Actually, one question, one comment. I see, to my experience, I see that denomination. Sometimes we use denomination to competing each other, saying that our denomination is better. It's true, because we have the Holy Spirit, and the other say, oh yeah, don't accept those in denomination because they speak in tongue and they go crazy. I start to see the argue among the church member or different denomination. And the second question is, denomination, is it biblical?
well, there is no denomination in the Bible, to be clear. But the division already start, you look at the book of 1 Corinthians. Paul said that the church have 4 groups. One group is called themselves Peter group. Another group called themselves the Christ group. Another called themselves Paul group. Another called themselves Apollo group. You might call that already 4 denominations in that church. And Paul don't want that. Why they split themselves out in 4 ways? Well, because they believe that their group better, their group do better, their group is preferred by God that way. And that's all wrong. Paul say no, that's not the right way.
Yeah, to me, I think that denomination can be a good thing, can be bad thing, just like Dan you mentioned earlier. I think Saint can also use our denomination to separate us for like divide for division.
Yeah, you're right.
And also at the same time, if we be together, we stand together, we united, we can stand. But either way, I think Saint can use that for that purpose too.
There's a joke. I don't know, you heard the joke before. They say that if you want to join your denomination, it's not in heaven, but in hell. In hell, there is all denomination there, but in heaven, only one Jesus church. So if you want to join your church, you need to go to hell. Hell have every church, every denomination there. Well, it's a serious joke.
So what is a good way? Non-denomination or just join a group?
Well, denomination have a good point, and why they form a lot of things in history because necessity. They need to support one another. They need to help one another. So if we keep the good part of it and ignore the bad part, I think denomination still can survive. Just use the good part and left the bad part.
Yeah, I think I do like the Southern Baptist for the word autonomy church. Yeah, I think I like the. I've been in different denomination, but sometimes they controlled by the headquarter. Somehow I like Southern Baptist because you can work the way that it fit your local people, but still affiliate with the Southern Baptist.
Yeah, this is the unique thing that they give a lot of freedom to you, as long as your faith is not too much away from the Bible.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
อาจารย์
Yes.
have you heard that Southern Baptist kick what's that Warren, what's the guy's
Yep.
name?
They kicked Rick Warren Church out of the convention.
Yeah, because
Why? You know why?
he used one lady, he ordained one lady to be pastor, something like that.
He ordained two ladies to be pastor in his group of churches. So you see, the convention comes a lot from the South. When they vote, you see all churches send their representative to vote, and the South control the majority because they're so conservative. But the California convention don't kick Rick Warren out, but the national convention kicked him and his church out. Now people say that, can you be part of the state convention without the national convention? Well, possible. But Rick Warren resigned from all Southern Baptist convention, national convention, state convention, association. He resigned out of all the Southern Baptists.
So he doesn't want to have to do anything about Southern Baptist, huh?
He don't need to do because it's just so big, and he give a lot of money to the convention anyway.
And Ajahn, what would be your vote then if you were there?
Well, I will vote to keep him. You see, as I say that Paul forbid some churches from using women, but in some situation, Paul appoint women to be leader. Like in Philippi, all the leaders are women, and Paul appoint them.
I have a conversation with one of the pastor, and then he told me that a woman cannot take a position in their church or be a pastor or preach, but she could help preach when there's no pastor available to preach. Then she could be the substitute to preach.
Well, that is very compromising, at least. I think in the middle way is from cultural and from tradition. They always let men do it first. When you cannot find a qualified man, women can step up. So I think that is fair. So is that the way God make man and woman different way in different purpose too?
So Ajahn, we can have one senior pastor man and associate pastor as a woman.
Well, it depends on the need of your church.
Our American side, they have associate pastor as a female, and their pastor do go up there on Sunday and they preach.
Yeah, I believe that if God call anyone and God use anyone, nobody can stop them. And it happened in the Bible. You see that Deborah, she the prophetess. She lead the whole army of Israel. She a woman, and everyone accept her. And not many of leader like Deborah. Yeah, Nathan.
So Ajahn, so for example, in our congregation, if we feel like we see that one lady that gifted, we feel like has calling, then it's okay to ordain her as a pastor.
Yeah, I believe that if God call her, God going to use her and she qualified. I think that nobody can stop her from serving God. But it also depends on culture and many things too. Some culture don't allow because mostly it's about their culture. Do you know that more than half of students in seminary are women?
Ajahn, to me, because maybe the culture, it's kind of weird to see woman pastor perform a funeral. Usually our culture, now we are believer, we are Christian, so we use Christian culture, but still kind of odd to have a woman run that funeral or perform that. So what do you think?
Well, you see, God make man and woman for different purpose. And it's always man need to lead the family, unless that family don't have man or man did not do the job. So mom need to step up and lead the family and do her to save the family. So I look at in that way, God designed man to be leader. But when men don't do the job or not available, women who qualify can step up and do the job too. Yeah, okay.
So that means for the Roman Catholic, do they have a lady or pastor?
No,
No, huh? For sure, no. How about the Southern Baptist, Southern denomination?
Southern Baptist has some women pastor, not a lot, but some.
About American Baptist,
A lot American Baptist.
okay. That is the one of my church. We adopt one woman pastor.
Okay. Do you have any more questions? After this class, I will shut down the Zoom for around 5 minutes. And you need to sign in for the second class. Okay, so I will make the recording stop here and we can take a break.